Good evening. It is 7:03 p.m. on Monday, May 18th, 2020, and I call to order this regular meeting of the Richfield School Board. Attending this evening's virtual board meeting are board members Paula Cole, Christine Malik, Tim Paulus, Allegra Smishek, and Peter Tensing, and I am Crystal Brackey. I'm thrilled that student board members Diane Maceo and Lucy Luna are with us this evening for our last meeting taking place during the 2019-2020 school year. We are also joined by Superintendent Unowski and several district staff members who you will hear from later in the agenda. This meeting is taking place virtually as allowed by Minnesota State Statute 13D.021 in light of the peacetime state of emergency declared by Governor Walz due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Richfield Public Schools' mission statement is that we strive to inspire and empower each individual to learn, grow, and excel. And as we've shared, that is especially important for us to keep at the center of our meeting this evening while we do our work from afar. We want to welcome anyone watching this meeting live or in the future on YouTube. Thank you for being with us. So with that, our first item of business this evening is to approve the agenda before us. As this is a routine business item, I won't individually call on board members, but rather do an open ask for any comments or questions related to the agenda. So board members, this is your opportunity to speak up. I'm looking. I don't see any comments or questions. So is anyone prepared to move the agenda as presented?
I'll move the agenda, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Tensing and a second will say Ms. Cole. Any final discussion? Okay, as we did in the last meeting, Christine, as our chair, is going to do the individual roll call votes after we have a motion and a second.
You're
Christine.
And as your clerk, you're the chair.
Oh, sorry. Old habits die hard. Christine, you are on mute though.
Distance learning is...
Okay, Ms. Cole.
Aye.
Mr. Paulus.
Aye.
Mr. Tensing.
Aye.
Ms. Smishek.
Aye.
And the clerk votes aye. Ms. Brackey.
Aye, the agenda is approved. We're still all getting used to this. And would just like to welcome student board member Naomi Ferguson, who is also now with us. Hey, Naomi. Okay, we now move into the information and proposals non-action items section of the agenda. I did not receive any requests to make public comment this evening, so our next opportunity to do so will be at the June 15th board meeting. As you can see by looking at the agenda, the superintendent's update this evening contains a lot of really great items for discussion, so I am going to move right into turning things over to Superintendent Unowski.
All right, thank you, Chair Brackey. So we sent out some updates to the community actually at about 5:44 today with some of those final pieces of information for our school year. And as we are learning, we continue to get guidance as we go further that helps us make decisions. And so a couple of updates for the community around student attendance because student attendance in the coming weeks is going to get a little bit more complex. Our week of Memorial Week, which is May 26th to the 29th, we're assessing all of our students to determine how we have been doing in online distance learning. And so students participating in the assessment during the course of the week will be marked in attendance for the entire week because there won't be lessons every single day for every single student. Our paraprofessionals, social emotional team, outreach workers, and social workers will continue to do outreach, but our main task for that week is assessment. And then during the final week of school, June 1st to the 5th, we are collecting materials. And so students who are able to follow through or participate and partner with the district in Chromebook iPad collection, along with textbook collection, will be marked present for the entire week. And so that's something that has evolved in our attendance during this final week or two. Similarly, we learned some new things about report cards. As we were working on our elementary report card, we learned we had just a couple of options for trimester 3. We actually learned that we were able to either score students 1, 2, 3, or 4, or put in the box NA not assessed. Any other mechanism would actually corrupt the file and wouldn't allow us to do report cards at the end of the year. Which is okay because this is essentially what we had planned, which is our students still on their final report card receive their numerical assessments for trimester 1 and 2. And then in elementary, our teachers, each classroom teacher is going to write up a summary of the learning for each student over the course of the year. And then they're also going to make some suggestions for students to learn over the summer. For the final trimester, or for the March 16th, the end of the school year date, there will be some written descriptions in both English and Spanish on our report cards that will allow us to describe to parents and families and people reading report cards in the future at elementary what was the learning that happened during the distance learning time. And so it's not an actual grade, but a description of the learning that occurred. Secondary schools, just to repeat, our students can receive letter grades or pass-fail for extenuating circumstances. Pass-fail can be requested by students or parents' family members up until May 29th. But then also school leadership and counselors are going to be reviewing grades to support our student success and examining to see if there are extenuating circumstances or students needing additional outreach during that end period of time. And then the last significant distance learning update would be around our celebrations. And so guidance just came out around celebrations. We were feeling pretty excited and progressive about some of the graduation and celebration hopes that we had sent off to the Department of Education and the Department of Health. The reality is we were told that no one should be gathering in a group above 10. We should not have celebrations that even involve the opening of a car window. We should not have celebrations that involved being in person, even if it was on a football field, even if they were 50 yards apart from each other. And so essentially, we have learned, given the guidance, that it is best for our student safety, despite what we may want to do, to have our celebrations occur virtually. And so each of our buildings has been working together to do that. At the high school, we are working to bring all students in as part of our collection to have a graduation ceremony, including caps, gowns. Students will go across the stage. There will be speeches given. It just will be done in a staggered and scheduled way that will be one student at a time. And so students and their family members will have the opportunity to see and get photos of their students in graduation caps and gowns, and then also have a streamed graduation ceremony that they can see online and then also keep for the future. So with that, I will pause and check in with Chair Brackey to see if there are any questions about some of those updates before we celebrate our students.
I think we should just, as we've tried to do, start with our students for the items related to distance learning and how things are feeling and how things are going right now. So Diane, as the senior of the group, wanted to start and see if there's anything that you wanted to share with us.
No, I'm pretty much good. I'm kind of just excited for like the end of the year stuff and like for the, I mean, as close to what a graduation as we can get. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, we're excited for you, even though we know it's not what you thought it was going to look like.
Thank you. No, I'm just thankful to have even made it this far. I mean, I'll take anything.
I have to interrupt. I'm sorry, Dinah, you are far from being done. So you might be done with high school, but there is another graduation or more in your future, and there is a long road ahead of you education-wise, young lady.
Definitely. I'm headed with an optimistic tone, though, because I'm like, you know what? If I couldn't have high school, at least I'll have college. So looking forward to it.
Exactly. And in case you didn't see, you were getting some fists in the air from Dr. Daniels and some points and some nods from Dr. Roby. So just wanted to make sure you knew that you've got lots of love coming through various TV screens right now.
Thank you to everybody.
Okay, and then would love to hear if there's anything from Lucy. We'll go to Lucy next.
Hi.
Hi.
What did you want to ask? I'm not a senior, so like I can't like relate to everything. I feel so bad because I do have a lot of senior friends, but I think that like you guys are like doing a good job of like trying to make it better, even though it's like not gonna get any better, but at least trying.
Yeah. Well, and just if there's anything you want to share about how distance learning is going for you and just how you're experiencing things as a junior.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been going good. It's just like really overwhelming because it's something that we had to like get accustomed to like very quickly. Like we had to like adjust, like have different routines, and I think that that was the hardest part of it. But you know, like getting a little bit more used to it, and teachers being like super flexible and like telling us, you know, that it's gonna be okay, like it helps a lot. So yeah, I appreciate all the communication that's been going on, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Naomi.
Okay, so can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My thing is like going on and off, but like Lucy, it took me a long time to get adjusted, like more than I thought it was gonna take me. So I'm kind of praying we don't have to do this again next year at all. But once I got adjusted and like was communicating with my teachers well, it's been a smooth ride. And then also I had conferences virtually with my parents like a few days ago. And so that really helped. And the teachers have just been doing a good job. So yeah.
The more celebration. I think Dr. Daniels perked up when she heard about conferences with your parents. Okay, we will turn to board members. If there are questions or comments about anything that Steve shared or the communication, you know, that went out just a couple of hours ago, for example. So we will follow our traditional, start with Paula and then just go down the line.
I don't know if this is the right space in the agenda, but it's been on my mind. I read in the update for families that their devices and other materials will be returned towards the end of this school year, and I'm curious to know if we are going to contemplating summer school distance at all, and if we are, then wouldn't it be helpful to have students keep their devices? I just want more information about that now or later as you see fit in the agenda.
Sure, I can respond to that at the moment. So we just got guidance from the state around summer school, and so you are allowed to have students in a pod in person with one teacher and 9 students. And so what we are doing is we are planning a summer school, and this is again at the recommendation of the state to start in early July. And so we are looking, we have surveyed staff. We have a set of staff who, before they actually had to fully commit, said that they were willing to come and do summer school in person. And so we are looking at offering both in-person options and distance options. But what we decided to do as a district is, you know, our devices need cleaning, our devices need installation of updates, and those don't happen when they're in students' hands. And so our plan is to collect all of the devices, clean them, and then students who are going to be present for summer school, we will then do a redistribution of materials out to those in summer school. And then again, at the end of summer school, collect them again to do that same piece. The other thing to keep in mind is that, you know, as families move in and out, somewhere between 5 and 10% of families might transition in and out over the summer. And so obviously we wouldn't want to lose 5%, 200 plus devices or 400 devices because we hadn't done that collection. And so we just want to do that so that our devices stay strong and we're able to replace ones that need it and that we have the installation and updates that happen.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any further questions, so we can go on to Mr. Paulus.
I also don't have any questions. Thanks.
I don't need like all of the details, but could you provide just a little more information about how you'll be doing the graduation? Like I heard virtual, but then also they're coming in for photos, and those seem to conflict to me. So can you just kind of clarify how you're planning to maintain social distancing for those opportunities?
Sure. So we are, and the high school, by we, it's the high school and the high school admin have collaborated with districts around the metro, and there's a wide range of plans that are out there. What we are doing is bringing in students with their families individually on a schedule, and we're doing this along the lines with collection of devices at the high school and collection of materials. So a student comes in at their scheduled time, they drop off their materials, they take care of any additional business that they have to take care of. They're given a cap and a gown. They are escorted at a safe distance to the high school auditorium where they will walk across the stage. They will receive a diploma. We have some teachers, and we are working on this at the moment. We may be having teachers in the audience cheering at a wide range separated opportunity. We also may have graduation-based music playing in the background. And then students will then leave, take off said gowns, take off said cap, and then go off home. And so that will be going for actually several days straight as we do that. They also have our graduation speakers. And so we have scheduled time for Dr. Daniels to come and record her speech on that same stage. I will be recording my speech at the same time on that stage. And so we will be doing some of those components to then put together for a videoed and streamed graduation ceremony. Last thing we're doing is we're also working with a photographer to try to take photographs to be able to share those with families, because obviously they wouldn't get the same opportunity for photographs that they might in a ceremony. So those are some of the details of what we're doing. And again, that comes after Dr. Daniels and the student government worked a lot to talk about what are the things that we should be providing to make this most successful.
That's incredible. Thank you. Director Tenzing.
So I'm very curious to hear from Diane, Lucy, or Naomi about, are there things that you experienced during distance learning that you feel are kind of positives, and things that you feel like might actually be innovations that we could apply in the future?
I'll just go first. I don't see anyone else on like the camera. But for me, pretty much like, I don't know, maybe for me it was just different, but like to me, it wasn't even that bad of an experience. Like I didn't mind it pretty much. After like the first week, after getting over like the transition, I didn't really mind it. It wasn't that hard of a switch for me. So I think that like the communication with teachers like via email is very helpful, because I know that like when physical school is like in session and I email my teachers, it's harder to get a response like right away, whereas like now it's like the norm that like the only form of communication we have is through technology. So I feel like teachers are like quicker to respond. And even like technical difficulties obviously is like, it kind of goes without saying, but like if a test isn't available, I can like quickly email a teacher and he'll be like, okay, cool, and then the test will be up right away, versus like in school it's just like harder because you're obviously in person and there just isn't like those resources. But since our school is like Chromebook based and like we use computers and technology, I think that it'd be cooler to like implement more like the technological side into like real school that we've been dealing with through distance learning.
So Lucy, let's give you a chance to speak up. Is anything that you experienced from distance learning that you would like to say is actually a good take home and something that could be improved upon and something that would be positive?
Hi. Yeah, I think I was talking to my mom earlier about this. I think having like the teachers kind of like in their office hours, but it'd be mandatory to be there, if that makes sense. Like basically have regular school, but then have the teachers, because it's hard when like a new unit is brought up or something and they try to do like a video or like something like virtual like that. I think it'd be easier to question than have your questions like asked immediately, you know. But I think the communication too, like Diane said, like it's been great, and teachers been trying to make it easier, even though it's not, even though it's a hard transition. But yeah, I think it's like new to all of us, so it definitely would be hard to make a big transition like that. But yeah, just like as a suggestion, something of that sort would be nice.
Cool. Naomi, what would you like to share?
Yeah, I agree. Like for some of my classes, I noticed that having like videos was almost better than class because like okay, it's kind of weird, but I feel like in class there's like so much more distractions and like it's easier to like miss things. And so while I was doing an assignment for like online school, I can watch her like lesson and then also do my homework. So I like that. So like maybe I don't know if teachers could also make like videos or I don't know something like that. And then also I agree, communication was so much better like after online school and for virtual conferences, I think that they should always have that as an option too, because like some students or parents can't make it that night sometimes, and so I think like they should be able to like email parents and see if they would like to do that option instead always. So
Cool. Yeah, those are some great observations, and I just really appreciate y'all sharing those with us. And I think I'm good. So thank you. I will pass it back to Chair Brackey.
Thank you for that follow-up question. And I think it's just a perfect example and honestly segue into recognizing and appreciating the perspectives that the three of you have brought to our school board this year. I think that was just a beautiful example of why we are so grateful that you have shared your time and your experiences with us and have represented your classmates on the board this year. So Steve, I will turn it over to you, and then we're going to give a chance for board members to say a few words as well.
So each year we have new board members join us, new student board members, and it's really an experience based on what our students bring to the table. And I just want to say that I have been particularly impressed and really, really pleased with Diane, Lucy, and Naomi, and they have shown maturity, strength, and intelligence, really looking at the issues that are in front of our school board, and really making sure that they are a highly valuable and valued presence. And so I just want to personally recognize their efforts and thank them for being on our school board. I'm excited for Naomi and Lucy to be on again next year. And we will look for a junior to add to the team who can hopefully bring the same strength that Lucy and Naomi have brought. And of course, before Crystal says it, yes, you have the choice of returning or not. That is the subtle pressure of Superintendent Steve saying we would love to have you continue on with us. So thank you, Crystal.
And also, I think this is totally unscripted, but because Dr. Daniels is on the line and because Dr. Daniels, you know these three probably better than any of us, also want to give you a chance if there's anything that you would like to share.
I just want to share that I love my students. I miss my students, my babies. And it's so great to see you. And it's so great to hear. I'm so appreciative that Director Tensing asked you all very pointed questions about the distance learning model, because you don't know that Ms. Clarkson and I, Dr. Clarkson actually, and I are working on, Dr. Roby, we're working on how do we make this better if we return to this in the fall. And we're looking at the innovations around the model. And so I'm so excited that virtual conferencing went well. I'm so glad that you all talked about the videos and how they really helped us, because how they really helped you all, because we really, really pushed that in our PD and the rollout for teachers. We wanted to refine and really streamline what your experience was as a end user, so you would really get to the point of it all, which is the learning. And so it was great to hear from you all. And actually, Dr. Clarkson sent me a text while you all were speaking, and we're going to pull you all in some more to glean more from you all, what went well, what did not go as well, so we can continue again to refine the model if necessary for next year and to learn from it. Because what I heard was, in listening to Naomi, Lucy, and Diane, was how do we leverage technology, even if we're in a building? How do we leverage technology for students who can grasp the learning, just by watching the video and move forward independently, whereas some students may require or need additional support with the teacher in real time. So how do we leverage technology to differentiate, to scaffold, and accelerate learning for students? And so this was exciting for me to hear. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
So we're going to start things with Paula in just a moment, but Diane, Lucy, and Naomi will give you a heads up that if there is anything that you want to share just about your experiences over the last year, we're going to give you a chance to do so at the end as well. Because of course, if there's anything you want to share with us, we'd love to hear it. So Paula.
Well, I want to say thank you to all of you for the energy, the very thoughtful insights about how life is at the high school, and for helping us all understand how the decisions that we make or the vision that we have will affect you or not, or how useful or not it will be. I'm just really proud to call you students and hopefully friends, and I'm just here for whatever else you might need or want to chat about with me. I'm just delighted to have known you more this year. So thank you for everything. Christine.
Thanks, Paula. So I have, and I know that the rest of the board has always appreciated that we have students willing to join us to put that time and effort in and to share their experiences and perspective. We have had some real challenges this year. From the beginning of the year, this has been just a lot of challenging experiences. And to have you guys around to share your perspective in such, as Steve said, such a mature way, and also just still able, through some really tough stuff, to be able to focus on the positive. That is a really amazing trait. You guys are all just incredible young women. I am really glad we've had you this whole time. And with everything we've gone through this year, your perspective was even more valuable than it would be on an average day. So it really helped all of us deal with some things and make some positive changes. And I hope that you see those changes going forward. I am excited to have Naomi and Lucy come back. We will miss Diane, but I am sure she is onto some really great adventures, and hopefully she'll keep us informed on where she goes going forward. So thank you all. And Mr. Paulus.
Thank you. I share in everyone's appreciation. We have been extremely fortunate as a board over the years, but in this year in particular, with the sincerity and the attention and the contributions of our student board members. So really thank you. I will say as a board member, I never know if I'm doing a good job, and that's okay. But I want to say you guys did a tremendous job, and you guys were wonderful. So thank you. Allegra?
I don't know if I can speak for all the board members of this, but thinking about my 17 or 18-year-old self and then comparing that to you all, I am so impressed by your confidence that when you speak, it's like you just have this power behind your voices, and you are so real with us. You don't try to sugarcoat anything. You tell us like it is. And that's exactly what we need. So I've just been so impressed with that confidence that you bring. And then also the commitment to your community and your school community and making it better. You've just invested so much time. And as young people, there's so many things you could be doing with that time. And I'm just grateful that you're giving that to Richfield schools. So thank you.
So it's definitely been stated. I would want to reiterate very much the gratitude that my colleagues on the board have shared, and reflecting both on what Director Malik and Director Smishek have said, the honesty, candor, and integrity that you guys have brought to this board has been just really fabulous. I think it reflects a very high level of commitment to your role. And so you've been role models not only for your peers, but for, I think, the adults on the board as well, sort of showing us how you can bring that honest candor to your conversations, but also, just like Christine said, with the very constructive suggestions and looking forward to the future on making things better. And so I am, as all my colleagues on the board, and I'm sure Dr. Daniels and all the staff, were just very grateful for all that you guys do. And we're thrilled to hear about Diane's journey moving forward. We know that you have great things in your future, and thank you all. And we look forward to hearing back from you. So thank you.
So I'll wrap things up by just sharing one specific appreciation for each of you, because I think it's actually your unique strengths and perspectives that have come together to give you just this incredible superpower as student board members this year that you've heard everybody talk about. So Diane, I just think of you as being so fierce and so focused. You just like cut right through to the heart of things without wasting time or words in a way that I am just super grateful for. Lucy, I think your love of Richfield and of the school and of the students and all of the opportunities and ways in which it can be better is one of the things that comes through so clearly in your work on the school board. And then Naomi, I think you have a really special gift for coming through with the powerful thought at the right moment in time. And I just love hearing what it is when you say it. And there are a couple of things that you shared with us this year that still sit in my brain. So thank you for that power. Okay. Thank you to the three of you. You're getting applause in the video, just in case you can't see it. And as I said, I wanted to give you a chance if there's anything that you want to share back from us, or back to us from your experiences this year. So Diane, we'll start with you, and it's totally okay if you pass and don't have anything that you want to share. No pressure.
Okay. Hello again. I really want to give you guys a special shout out. Like, I'm someone who's like pretty big on like relationships and like realness, as Crystal just mentioned as well. So like I appreciate like genuinely like nice, good people, like genuine relationships, and I can like 100% wholeheartedly say that like through being on the school board, like I have met you guys, which are like really great people who really care and are really passionate for what you do. And like I could not be more thankful to be like part of a community, like growing up in Richfield, and not even that, but like being on the school board as a student member, like being in two communities basically in one, but so different at the same time. And like I really want to say thank you to Crystal and Dr. Unowski, because you two are like, I don't know, like I think of you guys as like mentors, and I don't look up to people because I think that you should never want to look up to someone, but I really do look up to you guys. Like you guys are great people, and I really appreciate everything you do, and I appreciate you guys for taking a chance on me, because Dr. Unowski knows more than anyone how I was at the beginning of this, and for being on the school board, how I was like totally against it. So I really want to say thank you for pushing me, because that experience led to so much more and turned me into like the person that I'm becoming as I'm growing up more. And I could not be any more thankful. So thanks to all of you guys.
Thank you. Lucy, you want to go next if there's anything you want to share?
Yeah, I agree with everything Diane said. I think like I've learned a little something from each and every one of you, and I really, really appreciate it. And like what she said too, like I've told you guys this, like I was always super shy before I came to Richfield, and Richfield has like taught me so much. And I'm really appreciative of like all the hard work you guys do to like have student input, and it yeah, I really appreciate it, and I love being on the school board. It's so fun, and it's a great experience, you know, like talking to my peers and my parents, and you know, they also really appreciate that you guys are trying really hard to make Richfield a better place, and not having it just be, you know, everyone who's up here. And yeah, so I really appreciate it. And I'm really excited to be back with you guys next year.
And last but not least, Naomi, if there's anything that you would like to share.
Okay, so I just want to say, first of all, thank you for all the compliments you guys just gave us. And then, like, I thought it was really interesting that Miss Mishek said that, like, we're super confident speakers and stuff, because in the beginning of this, like, I wouldn't have never said, like, I'm a confident speaker. And I remember having the meeting, like, where you guys were deciding if you guys wanted to choose us with pizza and stuff. And I realized, okay, I really want to, like, be involved and, like, make the changes, but I have to talk in front of people. Like, I was so scared about that.
Same.
But, like, this helped me realize that I can be, like, my laid-back self and stuff, but also, like, be a voice at the same time. And so that was great. And then also, I always tell my mom all the time that, like, being on the school board made me realize, like, how many great people are behind, like, making the school run smoothly. Like, it's not just teachers and cafeteria people and who you see all the time. So I appreciate that.
Thanks to the three of you for your kind words too. Diane, we want to hear what's next once you sort of take off and start this next phase of life. And Lucy and Naomi, we're really excited to see you in person again as soon as we can. After you enjoy your summer, we'll be back together in the fall, we hope. And I am going to turn things back over to Steve for our next update. As much fun as all of the celebration has been, we still have a super long agenda and a lot of work to do.
Exactly. All right. So I will talk while Scott gets our distance learning survey up. So Corey has taped this presentation. I believe it's around 8 to 9 minutes. And so Scott will get that rolling and we will watch that once it begins.
Hello, I'm Director of Technology, Corey Kling, and I'm excited tonight to talk about our Spring 2020 Distance Learning Survey results. We distributed the Distance Learning Survey to parents, guardians, and students about 2 weeks after we went into distance learning. And we went into distance learning mode on April 6th. So a couple weeks later, we distributed this survey to get some feedback on how things were going for our families and for our students. Okay, so who took our survey? I'm going to close out the window here of my image and get into the results. So you can see here that in terms of students and parents and guardians, that we had a pretty good representation across the board for, in schools with parents and guardians, and then a higher number with students at the middle school and high school, which is reflective of our one-to-one program, where we have one device per student that goes home with those children. So you can see those numbers here, and that makes sense in terms of that allocation. And then our race and ethnicity numbers are below. And you can see those here, and you see the key over here that royal blue is white, off blue is Hispanic, green is black, and then we get into me having to identify a specific color. I'm not sure if that's some sort of a green. And two or more races, orange Asian, red American Indian, and purple Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. So these are the results as they came in, and I'll talk a little bit about those results in a second after I show you just a little bit more data. Our grade levels, you can see across the board here. We really had a nice return of students at the middle school and early high school realm, which was nice to see, but a nice representative return across the board. And that is thanks to a good communication campaign, as well as our staff doing a good job of sharing the survey with families and students. See our gender representation here, it's hard to read that. That's 38.32% male and 60.94% female, and 0.74 neither male nor female. And then our survey language, you can see here that we have about 93.5% of our respondents were English speaking, and about 6.5% were Spanish speaking. And again, that's primary language. So that's measuring what is their primary language at home. Demographic takeaways. Student response data is representative of our diversity. You can see in our numbers there. I'll go back a couple slides and show that. You can see our numbers here are very reflective of our diversity, and we're proud of those returns on the survey. Some grade levels responded in much higher volumes, indicating a push by staff in those schools and grades. Our highest returns were in 6th grade, so shout out to the 6th grade teachers, but across the board, everyone did a nice job of sharing and seeking results. So thank you for that. The feedback numbers at this point in an academic year were impressive. So definitely some motivation around responding to this survey, with this being a brand new learning model, with people having positive and positive things to say and concerns about the program. There definitely was a motivation to respond to the survey. So we were pleased with the responses. Data trends and takeaways. Well, what did we learn? Well, one thing we learned is that our students had the technology that they needed, and that they were able to get that repaired or get assistance if they needed it. So thanks to our strategic plan that is cycle that's wrapping up right now, our 5-year strategic plan, we had the technology to be able to issue to students. Like I said, one-to-one program on our secondary, so our middle school and high school students had their own device issued at the beginning of the year. And then we had a distribution at the elementary level of Chromebooks from classroom carts and that were checked out to families. And we had enough devices to get devices out, or Chromebooks out, to any family that requested one. So we were excited that we were able to do that. So we definitely had the technology, and the technology is working. You could see that in the technology issues area, if there were issues or breaks, for the most part, those issues were able to be resolved, whether through our virtual help desk, our phone call help desk, or a local vendor partner, Chipheads, that we partnered with to get devices fixed. We are pretty pleased with these numbers. So I'm excited about that. And then also internet access. Our communications director did a wonderful job of putting up on our website local internet service provider partnerships, as well as information about how to hotspot phones, because internet service providers in the mobile realm, Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, etc., had increased their data allotments so that distance learning across the country would be more accessible, and probably realistically across the world. And then also we had hotspots that we issued out to students, and we, as part of the strategic plan, we got hotspots a couple of years ago for families in need of internet access. How is distance classroom instruction being received? You can see here that our parents and guardians and our students felt pretty good about the instruction that they've been receiving, with most numbers being in the excellent to good and fair range. Participation, our students being engaged and being accessing the learning and participating in it, and you can see that the numbers here are definitely very encouraging. And the data there, we use a software platform called CatchOn that measures how often kids log in. That data would match this. So our students are doing a wonderful job, and our parents and guardians are doing a wonderful job of supporting. And our teachers are doing a good job of putting curriculum out there as well, and doing a wonderful job of monitoring that. You can see here with our amount of work, is it too much, just right, too little, or unsure? The too much in the student realm there is definitely something that makes us want to just dig into that a little bit more and have some conversations about how we can make work in this realm accessible and able to be completed. You can see here, is it too difficult, just right, or too easy? So these numbers are encouraging. So you go back here, it's definitely, like the too much thing. Then you reflect on the next slide where it's saying too difficult or just right. Maybe just a little bit less of the just right work is where we want to land to hit that sweet spot. So interesting numbers to discuss here. And then communication. One of the things here to note in these pie graphs, it's talking about parent communication with teachers, principals, and the district, and then student communication with teachers, principals, in the district. This is receiving communication as well as feeling like you're a part of a back and forth communication process. So one of the things that we or that I think about when I see this, is just about whether or not we can dig into these numbers a little bit more to see, do families and students feel like they're receiving plenty of communication? And you could see this here, or, you know, trying to diagnose, is it the receiving of communication or the ability to share communication back with the teacher or the school? And then the final thing is, we did an asynchronous approach to our learning, meaning that we put learning modules and learning opportunities in an online space. And there are a few opportunities for synchronous or face-to-face class, but not as many as maybe we'd like to do if we need to go into a distance learning mode in the future. So the ability to hold face-to-face class would be a priority for us to be able to try and get better at for next year if we do have to go back into distance learning at all. And then finally, overall feelings about distance learning. You can see here that people feel pretty good overall about the quality of instruction that they've received. And finally, distance learning at RPS has been a success considering the challenges of delivery. Staff are prepared and the data supports that assertion. Families are struggling with work life and facilitating learning balance. The comments of the survey really reflected that, and we're all feeling it. And our community loves our teachers. That was shown through and through. Comments were just littered with statements about how much they love their school and their teachers. So kudos, wonderful job, staff, and it was a pleasure to share these results with you.
All right, so I believe Mr. Kling is also on the line, who also, and Corey received some questions in advance, and so he can continue with answering some of those questions, and then he will answer additional board questions.
Sure. There was a question about ELL and MLL, so English learning learners as well as multi-language learners. And when we delivered the survey, that wasn't explicitly asked. It was more of what language do you select. So that data piece on the pie graph is, when you take the survey, you had the opportunity to select English or Spanish. And so if you felt like you were fluent enough in English to take it in English, you could have left it at English, or you may have switched it. So there was no criteria or way in which to sort that data for the language piece. So that was one piece to follow up on. And then the other question, according to my notes that I've written down here, had to do with just the dispersal or the survey going out. And the survey went out in district communication, as well as teachers shared that communication link with students. So I may have missed a question, so I'm happy to answer more questions on that and or separate ones beyond that. So fire away.
Thank you, Corey, for the video and for being with us tonight to answer additional questions that people might have. So Paula, we will start with you.
I heard what I had been thinking about, so I'm gonna pass the mic to Christine. Thank you, Corey.
You're welcome.
I just want to start by thanking you for what I think was probably a huge task to complete on very short notice, to flip this around, to get our staff and faculty ready and get our students ready and be able to pull this off and work on making families kind of feel comfortable and figuring out all of that balance. You guys did an amazing job with this. And then to have this data on top of it is another great benefit. So thank you for all of your extra efforts in the past couple of months.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So the only question I have is on the slide on overall feelings about distance learning. Oh, so student age levels, is parents the elementary and then secondary is the students? Or did you get some feedback on elementary for students too?
Yes, we did have feedback, or elementary students did reply to the feedback. One of the things is, of course, with the younger ages, that would have been scaffolded by way of partnering, whether sitting down with the parent or guardian. But yes, we did get student survey all the way down to the kindergarten level.
And did we get any just comments or suggestions? Did we have a spot for just any comments or suggestions where people could just type in comments?
Yes. Yes, and if you guys would like the narrative list of those, I'd be happy to send those over. Just a real quick, some of the pieces are the takeaways really in that realm. As I mentioned in the slide deck, there was a significant number that were just talking about how hard distance learning is. And you know, from the student perspective, we had our students on here before. I know they're living it on the student end. Parents are living it, whether they have to go to work or they have to work from home, and then trying to help facilitate the student learning in that just where you have all these forces meeting, as we all know, it has definitely been really a challenge for families. Of course, they're rising to the challenge, but it definitely, there are a lot of comments around that. So I will share that narrative set of responses with the board afterwards. If I could pull that report.
Great. Then I would just add, you did this 2 weeks into distance learning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that was the rockiest part. So from what I heard, it definitely got better after the first or second week. So
yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair statement. I think it probably has improved. I also think on the flip side of that, right, I think that people's fatigue with it might be increasing. So it's like, it may have been a little rockier, but it was new, right? And now it's like, now it's better. The content is better, and the way in which everything is functioning and the flow is better, but the fatigue is rising. And then of course it's May in Minnesota and it's about to hit 80 degrees soon. So that's a thing as well. So yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Corey. We'll move on to Tim.
Thank you, Corey. I don't have anything to add. Christine actually covered everything I might have asked, and then some. Allegra?
I didn't have a question, but then what you said, Corey, made me wonder if this will kind of serve as baseline data and if there will be surveys in the future, either at the end of the school year or in the next fall, potentially.
At this point, we don't have a plan, or we haven't discussed another survey, but the one of the things about this is the amount of data, and the amount of data is one, and the time and constraints that we're under right now. There's an opportunity for us at the beginning of summer to unpack the data and use that data to inform how we go forward, should we need to plan for, and again, if we're going to be if we're going to do this right in the fall, if we do have to provide this, we aren't going to do that just in case. We're going to unpack that data now so we know what we need to know should we have to inform the fall.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tensing.
I do not have any additional questions, so thank you. Back to Chair Bracke.
Thank you. I think two things. One, wanted to really appreciate and thank our staff, because I feel like one of the consistent themes that our students were sharing a little bit ago is how responsive and accessible staff have been, and that seems to be making such a significant difference in terms of the experiences of students and families. And that sounds like it's very much echoed in the survey based on your comments about all of the appreciation and praise for teachers. And that's what made me wonder, especially as Dr. Daniels and Dr. Clarkson are doing some work thinking about what we may need to do as we start to look towards the future, is feedback that we are getting from our staff as well. I think this is an incredibly important and helpful survey from the student and family perspective, but I also want to make sure that we are capturing the experiences of our staff. So I don't know if that's a question so much as a hope, that is something that we are also working on right now.
Yeah, we have started to circulate a document within Teaching and Learning in the cabinet with that exact issue, the questions we want to ask our staff when this distance learning period is done. So yes. Great, thank you. And now we'll have a chance to see if there's anything additional that our students would like to ask or share. Diane, is there anything else for you?
Sorry, my camera wasn't working, but no, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. And Naomi.
I'm good also. Thanks.
Okay, fantastic. Any last remarks before we move on to the next item in the superintendent update? I don't see any, so Steve, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, so we have two actual presentations tonight. Neither of the staff members are here in attendance. So we have a RCEP presentation coming from Dr. Keisha Wilhite, followed by a website update. I believe Scott is queuing that up as we speak, and so the RCEP presentation is the typical hosting. So as soon as that starts, I will stop.
Good evening, esteemed board members and Superintendent Yanowski. I'll be reporting on the RCEP program for the school year 2019-2020. The overview tonight is going to be some breakdown on student body, some changes in goal updates, graduation and credit successes, what we've been doing around distance learning, and celebrating student successes and sharing some student voices. We've had about a core group of 90 students this year. I did add the breakdown for what kind of supports and how many students are receiving those supports. And then some breakdown around male and female students, or those who identify as male and female, and then some racial and ethnic breakdown, as well as 2/3 of our students coming from Richfield itself and about 1/3 from out of district. We had 7 primary goals this year, the first being a successful move from the Normandale Community College campus back to Richfield proper. We took a photo just so folks could find us, new students and families, as well as even our own district folks who were surprised that we had moved or weren't sure exactly where we moved to. Also, we have 5 new team members. We have 10 staff overall, half of which are new this year. So it's been a lot of fun building community, both with staff and with students. And I did add a little photo of Flacco, our finned friend, in the classroom. Students just love him. Goals 2, 3, and 4 focused on 4-year graduation rate, overall graduation numbers, and also a credit increase from last year. I shared with you the graduation year, the graduation rate as it gets reported to MDE, so 4, 5, 6, and 7 year, and then also the number of RCEP students who have graduated as of 5/11 in those different categories. So a total of 16 graduates as of today, May 11th. Our 5th goal has been to implement our SEL work. We started with school-wide expectations, large group circles run quarterly, a little heavier in that first quarter. Some smaller group circles running monthly, and then also developing a students assistance team. The acronym, we are RCEP, you can see in that middle photo. We are respectful, responsible, caring, engaged, and productive. And what that looks like and sounds like in the classroom, we have a hallway sign, a lunch sign, a gym sign, and a off-campus when we go on field trips sign. And these were created with student voice, lending themselves to how they felt we should move and carry ourselves in our new community spaces. And then also I wanted to share some of the community building early in the year and what students had to say, and then also some great Post-its with what's going well and some nice goals. Number 6 was building in more family engagement opportunities. So we had 18 families come to our very first ever RCEP family night. It was so much fun. It was great. I hope you can tell from all the smiles. So we were really looking forward to having another one. Unfortunately, coronavirus had some other ideas for us, but we are looking forward to next year and being able to do this again. And then the 7th goal was to identify essential learning outcomes in the core courses, and this is started this year, and then we'll continue on into the next year, and then possibly a little beyond, because we are trying to reframe most of our courses. Just a couple other fun things. The staff has been so great with so many wonderful ideas. I feel so lucky to be part of the team. They came up with developing a postcard to send to students. So you can see these two photos, one with staff and then one with some of our students. And these postcards get sent out to students who aren't coming to school. And it's basically just a positive way to say, hey, we miss you, we value you, we want you to be part of our community, come back to us. And we also, of course, do the daily attendance calls as well as individual calls to students. Another example is how we acknowledge credits and courses that are finished up. So you can see raining credits for first quarter, blizzard of credits for second quarter, third quarter, which was cut short, was loving to earn credits, and then our credit wall. So every brick represents a credit that has been earned. And then when students finish up, they get to put their name on whichever quarter we're in, and it's just a nice way to acknowledge their work. We also have kids that work on the weekends, so we like to acknowledge, hey, it is a weekend and you are getting on and you are getting things done, so that's wonderful. After 3 weekends in a row, they get a certificate, and then we also like to celebrate when a student does finish. We absolutely want to acknowledge it right that day and not have them wait until the end of the year. They work pretty hard to get to that graduation deadline date goal. So you can see that in the bottom corner there. Distance learning update. So we have a communication log. Everyone is very busy communicating to students. We keep notes on how they're communicating, when they're communicating, and about what they're communicating. We also do a ton of attendance tracking, and calls are going out just about every day individually to students. We try to canvas pretty much every piece of technology we can think of to get our updates and our messages out to students and families. Our primary focus is on the practice profiles for distance learning. Teachers are getting individual coaching sessions every single week. The PLC is focused on instructional changes, and then they do some peer-to-peer feedback on the lessons. I'm proud to say we have no students who have been dropped as of today. And since distance learning has started, we have had 6 students graduate. And then 3 messages from students who have graduated this year, and I just want to highlight it's just great to hear back from students. I love this from this first one. When the diploma came in the mail, and he said, it just gave me a feeling of accomplishment. I want to thank you again for pushing me to the goal. Like there's no better reason to come to work than right there. Second one, new student to us this year, coming from actually living in St. Paul, and picked RSEP, found us through another student who graduated last year. And so proud of this young woman. She is going to St. Kate's, and she's got these 2 lovely scholarships. So was just an amazing young woman. She's gonna just have a great future ahead. And then today, another student finished up, and again, sort of that whole idea of, you kept pushing me. Thank you for being on my tail and reminding me on the things I have to catch up on. And again, I didn't do any editing of these messages. I did want you to really hear from the students themselves. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to get the answers for you. And I just want to say thank you for letting me present.
All right, so I want to thank Dr. Wilhite for hosting and sharing her information about RSEP. To put things in perspective, prior to Dr. Wilhite taking over RSEP, we were never above a 20% graduation rate as the 4-year rate. And so we have been in the mid to high 20s since she took over. As she pointed out, 6 students graduated during the distance learning time. That is more than the number of students that graduated back in 2016 and 2017. And so this team has really been focused and been continuing to improve, and is really doing a great job of serving our Richfield students. So thank you to Dr. Wilhite, and thank you to RSEP. Crystal, did you have anything you wanted to tap in, or?
No, I think we'll just give board members a chance to see if there are questions that they would like for that you could either answer or that you would like to share back with Keisha. So,
Perfect.
And I see Dr. Roby raising her hand that she could potentially chime in as well. So, Paula, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I just want to appreciate the efforts for community engagement and retention and motivation to our RCEP students. And just really enjoy seeing all the things that have happened in this transition year for them. So thank you for the report and the hard work to everyone involved. Christine.
I would agree with everything Paula said. I love the postcards that go home telling them that we miss you and come back, and the positive nature that she's obviously bringing to this. I think students that are in this position, sometimes they know, like it's not they don't know, and they just need that positive push. And I really think that probably goes a long way in her work, is keeping that kind of just positive note in all of it. And the additional distance learning information about how things went for them is very helpful also. So thank you. It was a great presentation. Mr. Paulus.
Thank you. No, I also love the presentation. I love the pictures from family night and the idea behind it, just the engagement and the support, and the first students' feelings of accomplishment really are tremendous. And you know, the students are in this program typically aren't there because something was easy. They're usually, you know, this is the hard route, and kudos to them for the success they're having. Allegra.
I just want to echo some of the other comments. The sense of community that RCEP has, like you can just really feel it from that presentation. I even got a little choked up with the postcard. Like, whoa, that's really special. So, thank you, Mr. Tensing.
So reiterating, of course, the gratitude that we have for RCEP. It's a program that does really some great work. And I'm just really excited to hear particularly about the student engagement numbers. Because I think that's really what, you know, kind of sits at the core of what RCEP is there to do. And so this is fabulous. So I will just leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Nothing else for me to say beyond what has already been shared. So I will not repeat myself. Diane and Naomi, is there anything that you would like to share? Any questions that you have about the program at RCEP?
I'm good, thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I do think it was great how they really valued like building genuine relationships, and you could really tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right, I will turn it back over to Steve for the website update.
All right, and so as you all know, our old website platform will be taken down on June 30th, and we launch a new website on July 1. Looks like he is already queued up. So Scott, you start playing and I will stop talking.
My name is Jennifer Valley, and I am the Director of Marketing and Communications here at Richfield Public Schools. Tonight, I'm here to provide the school board and community with a quick update on the new Richfield Public Schools website. As you know, improving our website and its content was one of our goals from the last strategic plan, and I'm excited to share with you that a brand new website is on track to be completed by July 1st. This process started last fall with a steering committee that helped to review vendors, create site maps, and provide the new design. We also met with several advisory groups to present the new site and collect additional feedback. There are several reasons why a new site is important, not just updating the content on our existing platform. First, we needed a site that was not just mobile responsive, but had a mobile-first design. Last year, more than 52% of the visitors to the district website were accessing it from a mobile device or tablet. We also need to make sure our website is ADA compliant, and our new site will launch fully compliant. It also has a built-in accessibility checker, which will help to ensure ongoing compliance with ADA guidelines. We want to ensure all our families are able to fully navigate the Richfield Public Schools website. That also includes families who prefer to access the site in a different language. Our new platform uses a system called Weglot to translate web content. It's not a static translation tool like Google Translate, but a translation management system that allows us to customize our translations and learn from our edits to create a truly multilingual website. Finally, we need a website that has a marketing focus. This means that our content is dynamic, SEO optimized, and has customized landing pages. Our new website meets all of these goals and more. So with that exciting lead-in, here is a sneak peek at the new website. This is the main landing page for the district, and each school has a similar landing page, but with their logo on the left, and of course, customized content for their school. It starts with a hero image at the top, which can be either a static image or a video like you see here. The red navigation bar on the left is static and remains in place as you scroll throughout the website so that you never lose your place and can always navigate to a new section. Here's that Weglot button I mentioned. With the click of a button, you can translate the entire website into the language of your choice. You'll notice even the tab at the top has translated into Spanish. Right now we have Spanish loaded, but we will have all languages loaded by the time the site launches. When you scroll down on the main page, each of our landing pages will have a news section that has a feature image and title, a little teaser text, and when you click on it, the ability to read the full article. Below the news section is our calendar section with just a few of the upcoming events, although you can certainly scroll as far as you want to see additional events. Each of these events you can click on for additional information. You're able to make attachments, embed forms, and do a lot to really make sure that if someone wanted to learn about an event, it's right here in front of them. They don't need to navigate to a separate page for the details on whatever the activity is. We'll have a calendar for all of our different schools, advisory councils, any of our different programs or departments that have calendars, and families have the ability to subscribe to any or all of the calendars that they're interested in. So if they have a student at STEM and a student at the middle school, they can subscribe to both calendars, and then all of that information will be integrated into their personal calendar feed so that they never miss an event. Also, these update in real time. So if a meeting location were to change an hour before the event, you can go in and change the location, and everyone who's subscribed to the calendar will get an alert that the location has changed. As you continue to scroll down the main page, you have a call-out section with either a slideshow or a video. And in this case, on the district page, we have the We Are Richfield video. Below that is a social media feed. Currently, we have the district Instagram and Twitter accounts on the main page, but each school can have 2 different feeds on their pages. And then the footer, again, which will be customized for each of the schools. You'll notice we have some quick links at the bottom as well as on the side, and these are for some of our most common pages that people navigate to. So portals, human resources, staff directories, things like that. I want to show you 3 pages tonight so you get a sense of what's possible on the inside. This is called the hamburger menu, and when you click on this from anywhere on a page, you'll notice we were scrolled all the way to the bottom, but still have full access to our menus without having to scroll back up. We have a search bar. These search bars are customized to each section that you're in. So right now I would be searching the Richfield Public Schools site. If we were on Centennial's website and I went into their search bar, it would say, what can I help you find at Centennial Elementary School? So they're customized to each section. We have additional Find It Fast links that can be customized, again, based on what the most common pages are on our site. And then this Mega Nav, which allows people to see every program, department, page within the site at one glance. They don't have to click deeper and deeper into our website to find the content that they're looking for. The first thing that I want to show you is nutrition services. If you recall from our last website, nutrition services is actually 11 pages of content for families to navigate through to try to find the information they're looking for. Here, it's on one page. And we've used this accordion feature in order to organize the content, making it easy for people at a glance to find what they're looking for and get that additional information. We've also embedded right here on the page the ability for people to donate to our Sunshine account through our GiveMN page. So if a family is interested in donating, they don't even need to leave the website in order to make that contribution. The next page I want to show you is a sample athletics page. So let's take a look at the football page. All of our athletics pages are set up the same, with a team photo at the top, some general information about the sport, including which grades are eligible to participate, and team details, again using that accordion feature. All of our coaches have access to the team details section so that at any time they can go in and update information. So if there's a change to their schedule or to practices, they can make that change themselves. Beneath that, there's a quote from the coach, as well as contact information for all of the coaches associated with that sport. And then at the bottom of each athletics page is registration information. So if someone decides that they're interested in registering, they don't need to navigate away to a separate page or a separate site. They can do it right here. They can learn about the registration fees, the sports qualifying physical and what they need to do there using these tabs, and then the register button. So it's all one-stop shopping for our athletic teams. In the future, in then phase 2, we're actually looking to integrate more features from the Minnesota State High School League website and Our School Today so that we could potentially have actual game information and sports scores fed directly into these pages as well. But that's round 2. The last page I want to show you tonight is perhaps the most exciting of all. I know you're waiting for it. School board policies. Who doesn't love a good school board policy? Our new policy page is fully accessible. All of the pages have actually been made into web content instead of attachments so that it is searchable and also readable for people who use a reader to navigate websites. Then at the bottom of each policy, you can also download the PDF or save it for people who would like to access the policy that way. If we go back to the landing page for policies, you'll see that you can navigate different sections. If you know what you're looking for or where it is, you can find it quickly. But let's say you have no idea where that wellness policy is. You just type wellness into the search bar, and there it is, because our policies are now fully searchable, making it quick and easy for folks to find what they're looking for. So those are the top level highlights. The goal is to have all the content migrated in early June, have the website committee and other stakeholders test the site and provide final feedback, and then launch the last week of June. Thank you so much for your time tonight, and I look forward to showing you this in real person. Have a great night.
All right, so similar to RCEP, I will be here for any questions if there are any.
Paula, we'll start with you.
I just want to say I'm very excited about this website, especially the policy and all the thinking about ensuring that everyone with different abilities is able to search for what they need, and also how organized. I think is going to be a really big hit for families next school year. So thank you for great work, Christine.
Sorry, I went on mute. So ditto what Paula said, and Jennifer was spot on. We are probably the most excited about being able to easily access all those policies. And we do love all those policies. And that's it. Mr. Paulus.
I thought it looked great. I stopped counting when I ran out of fingers, the areas of improvement that were being made. So really excited to see it when it goes live. Ms. Mishak.
Agreed. Very thoughtful improvements, and I think just such a great public-facing communication tool for our community. So great work. Mr. Tensei.
So my question is going to be around what is our mechanism for this may not be, I mean, this would be a very pretty detailed sort of technical question. So if Ms. Valley is not in the meeting, it might be one for us to take offline, but just curious to know what our mechanism would be for gathering feedback from users of the site for just sort of that continuous refinement. I certainly agree that, you know, we've done a really nice job and know that obviously, as with everything, we want to keep on learning. So something maybe to take back to Ms. Valley. I'm sure she has a plan.
Yes, she does. She has focus groups that she's planning in terms of checking in and monitoring the website. We also utilize our survey, and she has worked to add some of that. And then she's also planning on having a feedback form as part of our overall launch to make sure that we are gathering that feedback and refining as we move things forward.
Thank you very much. I will pass the baton to Ms. Brackey.
Thank you. I was just going to share, kind of related to the question that Pete just asked, that at the Activities Advisory Committee meeting last week, one of the items on the agenda was looking at this mock-up specifically of the athletic pages and giving people a chance to share on the front end feedback and thoughts. So it was really great to hear that group talk about it and to know that that feedback was going back to Jennifer before the launch even happened. Naomi, shout out to you for being our student board member still with us. Is there anything that you want to add?
No, I don't have anything to add, but I think that everything was great, like you guys said.
Thank you. I'm just going to look and see if there are any final comments or questions before we move on. I don't see any, so I will turn it back over to the superintendent to wrap up the superintendent update and bring us into commendations.
All right, so we have a brief budget update from Mr. Holge as part of this, and obviously it will be quick because we have a preliminary budget update also coming later on. So Mr. Holge with our budget update before commendations.
Yeah, we were going to do that budget update with the preliminary budget. It's ramped into that part of the presentation.
Got it. All right. So then I will just move straight on to commendations. The assistance lead from Christina Gonzalez, Director of Support Services, and she wrote this out to them. On behalf of Richfield Public Schools, I would like to thank our longtime partner assistance lead for providing additional support to our families during this time of distance learning. They have provided resources to meet the basic needs of families, including food, essentials, and basic amenities. So thank you, Assistance League, for your partnership and commitment in the past, present, and future. They have and continue to be a great partner. Thank you, Assistance League.
Is there anything else you'd like to share as your update before we move forward?
I think the hour and a half has been more than a spectacular update, so we will turn things right back to you, Chair Brackey.
Fantastic. Next item is approval of the consent agenda containing routine business items. Because this is a routine item, I won't individually call on board members for questions or comments, but instead we'll just pause for a moment to see if there are any questions or requests for changes before we entertain a motion. Seeing and hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I will move the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I will second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Malik and a second by Mr. Tensing. Any discussion?
Hearing none, I will take the roll. Ms. Cole?
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Ms. Smishek?
Aye.
Mr. Tensing?
Aye.
The clerk votes aye, and Ms. Brackey?
Aye, thank you. The consent agenda is approved. So we move into old business this evening, which again is the 4 existing board policies that we've been doing a lot of work to revise and discuss in recent months. I believe we are planning to move forward with potentially just one of those, but I will let the superintendent share more details as we go policy by policy. So we're going to start with board policy 502, resident and non-resident student enrollment.
All right, so 502 and 502.1, resident and non-student resident enrollment and new student registration. You will note that we have updated and realigned 502 along with new state statutes and updated in connection with the School Boards Association recommendations. The final rewrite of guideline 502.1 did not make it yet into the board packet. There were some final touches, as obviously with our online enrollment that we have been doing for the fall. We just wanted to make sure that everything was fully up to speed. And so even though this is the 4th read, we are hoping for a 5th and final to come at our next meeting, where you'll see a new rewritten guideline 502.1. And 502 should be ready for passage at that time. So with that, I'll turn it back to Crystal to see if there are questions or anything as we move forward.
Thank you. So this is an opportunity for final questions or comments, and just a reminder that if there are things that come up, it'll be really important to get them in advance of the next board meeting so we can hopefully take action then. So Paula.
I don't have any questions at the moment. Thank you. Christine.
No questions, Mr. Paulus.
I have two questions. One is on the lottery. If we aren't employing a lottery, are we still required to post the framework of how it would work?
We do want to have that posted in case we come into a situation we can't predict. And so we are hoping to leave that in there in case we find that out. We do have a lottery, however, and it's important to remember in terms of our pre-K and our pre-K openings.
And the second, it was just an edit. I think there was some outdated contact information that I shared. That correct?
Yes, that is in 5021, and that actually is the rewrite that didn't make it in the packet just yet. Dr. Clarkson and her team is finalizing.
All right, thank you. I have no more. Ms. Mishak.
No questions or comments. Mr. Tensing.
I'm good. Pass the baton back to the chair.
Thank you. I have also already shared comments and questions, so I'm good. Naomi, want to give you a chance in case there's anything burning in your mind?
No, I'm good, but thanks.
Okay, fantastic. And as Steve shared, we're going to try to land this one at our next board meeting. So we will move on to Board Policy 612 and the accompanying guidelines on curriculum development.
All right, so and similarly, we have continued to add the new forms and appendices into Policy 612 and 612.1, curriculum development. This one also, we are not moving for passage, although I do have multiple comments emailed to me from board members and things to edit. It's also important to note that Dr. Roby is going to be taking this policy to DCAC, our District Curriculum Advisory Committee. That actually meets on, I believe, Wednesday of this week. And so they're going to also see this again for that hopefully last minute review and realignment prior to ideally moving this forward at our June meeting also. But again, not ready on this one either. Back to you, Crystal.
Thank you. We'll start with Paula.
Nothing at the moment.
I have no questions either. I look forward to hearing the perceptions of the Curriculum Advisory Committee when we go over it on Wednesday. Mr. Paulus.
I have no questions. Ms. Mishak.
Apologies. No questions.
And I am good as well. We'll pass the baton back to Crystal.
Thank you. I am also fine and grateful to the Curriculum Advisory Committee for their eyes on this later this week. Naomi, is there anything that you would like to add?
No questions yet.
Okay. I just don't want you to feel left out. So that's why I'm always going to give you a chance.
No, I appreciate it.
Okay. We are going to then keep moving. This is the one policy that we could potentially take action on this evening, and that is Board Policy 404. Steve.
All right, so we believe we are ready with this one. 404, drug and alcohol testing. It applies to our employees and the processes that are used by HR. This has undergone a review by Mr. Holge and his team. He has run this through our legal support to make sure that it aligns. He has checked it with our MSBA model policy and all the statutory updates. And then they've reviewed it as an HR team to make sure that it aligns to actual practices, just to make sure that this one is all ready and good to go. So we believe this 101 pages of our packet, Policy 404, is ready. So we await your decision or recommendation or input.
Thank you. We will do a final opportunity for any questions or comments before we would entertain a motion. Paula.
I don't have any questions. Christine?
Looks
She's
like no
shaking her head.
questions and she's having trouble with mute.
No, I couldn't unmute it. No questions. Go on. Mr. Paulus.
I also have no questions. Ms. Smishek?
No questions. Mr. Tensing.
So I do have a couple, and please forgive me if my references aren't exact. So I think it's section 3H. This is where we're talking about so there are a number of, I think, pretty clearly spelled out scenarios where we would be authorized to do drug and alcohol testing. And this is relative not only to our employees who are holding a commercial vehicle license. And so, I think that there's actually some mandates on doing drug and alcohol testing in that class of employees. And then there's also some sections on relative to doing testing of other employees who are not holders of commercial vehicle licenses. And specifically what I'm curious about is, we talk about pre-employment testing, we talk about random testing. Both of those situations, I think, are actually fairly straightforward from the standpoint that pre-employment is clearly a defined moment in time. And we have disclosure materials and consents around that. Random testing, I actually believe, is also, even though it's not a defined point in time, it's the sort of, it is a defined expectation from the standpoint that it sort of could happen at any time, independent of employee behavior. Then there's the category, and now I have to forgive me that I'm not going to get the exact wording on this, but it has to do with performing testing sort of in response to observed employee behavior. And so this is that section H4, I believe it is, where we're talking about if there is an observation of employee behavior where there is a suspicion of substance use, that can become a criterion for referring for drug and alcohol testing. And we reference that the individuals who would be making that judgment need to go through some sort of training. However, we don't necessarily state what that training would be. And I did go back and take a look at the MSBA policy, and the language is identical. But I guess I'm just curious or wanting to have a little bit more detail on sort of what that training would be, knowing that sort of sometimes recognizing impaired behavior behavior that's impaired on the basis of substance use may or may not be fully straightforward or intuitive. So any other information we'd have about that training piece?
I'll jump in. Are you pointing at me?
Yeah.
So as part of the drivers training, or the supervisors for the drivers, the Transportation Association in Minnesota provides training for those individuals specifically within the transportation department, because there's a reasonable suspicion testing, but also they are required to be evaluating bus drivers every day that they're taking out keys and things like that. So part of our process for drivers specifically is that all drivers are handed their keys by somebody within that transportation office. And those individuals have been trained on drug and alcohol criteria and things like that. I also have been through that training in the past for other employees. And so I'll participate on that. It's not an annual training that's required at this point, but I've been trained on that. And we use 2 individuals in all situations that are related to other employees to be assessing, and then offer that as an opportunity. Obviously, in those situations, it's not required of the individual to participate in that testing under the other employees specifically.
Perfect. So that was it. That was exactly my next question, because it is obviously, I think it's much more clearly defined and intuitive in the case of our drivers, and then when we start to get a little bit more vague when we talk about other classes of employees. So thank you for that clarification, Craig, and I appreciate that there is that we do have a defined process on that training. My second piece comes from section 4.4. And again, this precisely mirrors the language of the MSBA policy. And I doubt there's anything we can do about it, or maybe necessarily would want to do about it. But I'm just going to bring it up for awareness. We're very specific in terms of calling out medical cannabis as a class of potentially prescribed substance. So this could be a legally prescribed substance in the state of Minnesota. And we're very specifically calling out that particular substance as one that we do not, we're sort of excluding medical cannabis with or without a prescription and with or without enrollment in a registry as being a substance of concern. And so I guess that brings up a couple of points. The first point, of course, being that there's any number of prescribed substances, whether they be opioids, sedative agents, like the benzodiazepine class of sedative agents, that are substances that have, certain significant potential to impair functioning. And so medical cannabis is certainly not alone or unique as a prescribed substance that could be impairing the functioning of an employee. So I think I know why it's there, but I guess I'm just curious as to whether we have any thoughts on, for the most part with other substances, an opioid, for example, we basically appear to be relying upon the judgment of the prescribing physician, that the use of that substance would not be, is being prescribed under a physician's authority and monitoring and guidance, and would not be considered an impairing sort of a factor. So I guess I'm just curious, do we think we're going to be moving that direction in terms of the medical cannabis, or are we just sort of waiting for more guidance from the state legislature on that, or from MSBA?
I did talk to MSBA, and it is intentional that it's included in that, and that is in the MSBA model policy, because it is restricted by federal regulations from being a substance that can be present in schools. So that was specific to federal regulations, and that is why that is required and called out in comparison to other prescription drugs.
Got it. So we're basically, many states are obviously in this scenario where state law and federal law may be in conflict, and so we're simply deferring to the federal law in this case. Okay. All right. Well, I think that explains it from a legal perspective. And I think I'm otherwise in good shape. I think that, I think I'm in good shape.
Thank you.
So thank you, Craig.
Okay, thank you, Pete. You're good, right?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure. I have no additional questions. Naomi, just gonna pause for a second, see if there's anything.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. So hearing that board members also are comfortable moving forward at this point, we could entertain a motion to approve the revisions to board policy 404.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Paulus and a second by Ms. Cole. Any further discussion?
I'm hearing and seeing none. I will take the roll. Ms. Cole?
Aye.
Mr. Paulus?
Aye.
Ms. Smishek?
Aye.
Mr. Tensing?
Aye.
And the clerk votes aye. Ms. Brockie?
Aye. The revisions to the policy are approved. Congratulations. I know this is a very, very big one. It has gone through a lot of work and revision. So appreciation to everyone. The last policy returning again this evening is another one that we are not planning to take any action on this evening, but is policy 112 and the guidelines related to our wellness policy.
Yes, and so this is 112, 112.1, and 112.2 wellness policy guidelines. These include nutrition. These include meal debt. And so these have been merged and put together, reminding us that 112.2 is a USDA requirement and us figuring out how to handle meal debt. Since the past meeting, we have our new director of nutrition, Michael Manning, and he has reviewed this with his team. And so it went through that next rewrite. We are hopeful that one more rewrite will get us to a final for our meeting in June, as we continue to align the language between the guideline and the policy and make sure that we are coming up with more and more clarity around conversations specific with our students about meal debt and how do we deal with this with families and what do we do so we make sure that this is a completely respectful and appropriate way. And the communication is happening in line fully with the vision of our administration and in line with the vision of the board. So we do have actually several who have sent in comments to continue refining this before June meeting. But I will turn it back to Crystal to see if there are other comments at our meeting.
Great. So again, let's all make good use of the next couple of weeks and work with Steve and the staff so that we have plenty of opportunity for final comments and feedback, knowing how long people have been working on this one as well. Paula, anything you would like to share this evening?
I have nothing to share. Thank you. Christine?
I have nothing also, Mr. Paulus.
I have nothing to share, Ms. Mishek.
Nothing from me, Mr. Tensing.
I'm good as well. Policy reflects a lot of work.
Great, thank you. Naomi, is there anything that you would like to add about this one?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Looking forward to coming back to this one then next month. We will now turn to the long list of new business items before us for the first time this evening. The first 4 of these are all change orders related to capital facilities work taking place across the district. So Chief Administrative Officer Craig Holge is going to review all of these change orders, and then we will take action on them by individual building. So Craig, I will turn it over to you.
Very good, thank you. The first series of change orders are for the high school with LS Black, change orders 20, 21, and 22 for a total amount of $130,688.92. $71,022.24 is change order 20 for a series of mechanical modifications throughout the building. Change order 21 is $24,083.70 for additions to the kitchen and additional structural supports to existing wall construction. And change order 22 on the high school is for $35,582.98 for a series of modifications to architectural and structural details, specific in the common main entry and lower level locker rooms, as well as some ceiling light fixtures and changes in that area as well. So that brings that total project to $36,519,817.71. The next series is Richfield STEM School for a total of $17,213.89. Multiple changes dealing with the removal of additional tile during demolition, furring of existing walls, installation of new tackable wall coverings, and some re-insulating the beta domestic water pipe insulation. That project is now at $15,305,413.17. Next up, we have Sheridan Hills Elementary change order number 1 with Corval Constructors. This is a $4,247 credit for case working and counter modifications, as well as some other modifications in the administrative suite. That is reduced to $9,577,753. And then the change order at Centennial Elementary with Ebert. This is change order number 3 for a $3,872.33 change order for plumbing plans, modifications in the plumbing plans, and that resulted from a state plan review and some requirements associated with that, as well as some electrical conduits running in the concrete. So that is that change order. All of these are continuously monitored by the Project Oversight Committee and reviewed by ICS as well as WOLD in those change orders, and go through a series of negotiations with the different contractors as well. So with that, we ask for your approval for that series of change orders.
Thank you, Craig. So this is the chance for board members to ask questions about any of those change orders, and then we will vote on them building by building. So Paula, you're up first.
I don't have any questions. Christine?
I have no questions either, Mr. Paulus.
I have no questions, Ms. Mishek.
No questions, Mr. Tensing.
I also have no questions. I'm good. Chair Brackey.
No questions here either. Naomi.
No questions.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So first up is request to approve the Richfield High School facilities change orders 20, 21, and 22. Do we have a motion?
I will move the high school change orders.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Paulus and a second by Ms. Malik. Any final discussion?
Hearing and seeing none, I will take the roll. Ms. Cole?
Aye.
Mr. Paulus?
Aye.
Ms. Mishek?
Aye.
Mr. Tensing?
Aye.
The clerk votes aye, and Ms. Brackey?
Aye. The change orders are granted, and we will turn to Richfield STEM change order number 20. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Tensing and a second by Ms. Malik. Any final discussion?
Hearing and seeing none, I will take the roll. Ms. Cole?
Aye.
Mr. Paulus?
Aye.
Ms. Mishek?
Aye.
Mr. Tensing?
Aye.
The clerk votes aye, and Ms. Brackey?
Aye. The change order is granted. Next is Sheridan Hills Elementary change order number 1. Do we have a motion?
I will move Sheridan Hills Elementary change order number 1.
I will second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Malik and a second by Mr. Paulus. Any final discussion?
Hearing and seeing none, I will take the roll. Ms. Cole?
Aye.
Mr. Paulus?
Aye.
Ms. Mishek?
Aye.
Mr. Tensing?
Aye.
The clerk votes aye, and Ms. Brackey?
Aye. Change order is granted. And last, we have Centennial Elementary change order number 3. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Smishek and a second by Ms. Malik. Any final discussion?
Okay, seeing and hearing none, I will take the roll. Ms. Cole?
Aye.
Mr. Paulus?
Aye.
Ms. Smishek?
Aye.
Mr. Tensing?
Aye.
The clerk votes aye, and Ms. Brackey?
Aye. The change order is granted. Our next item of business is a request to authorize a commissioning services agreement. Craig, I'm going to turn this one back over to you.
Yep, very good. This request is to authorize the agreements to be entered into with IEA for commissioning work to be completed at Richfield Middle School, Sheridan Hills Elementary School, and Centennial Elementary projects. We had a similar proposal about a year ago for the projects that are currently that were previously under construction. This really is a result of Minnesota statute requiring that any school facility projects in excess of $1.4 million that have heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems work that must be commissioned by a Minnesota licensed architect or engineer. and so does the mandatory piece. One of the questions that came earlier was how did this fit within the budget? I don't have the exact amount that was budgeted, but it is below what was budgeted as part of that. We had 2 respondents specifically to this commissioning work. Both incidentally are partners with Richfield Schools in different work. So IEA is a partner with us in our health and safety work, and they also do commissioning work. And ICS, which is our consultant on our capitals project, it also has a division that does the commissioning work. So both last year as well as this year, we sought multiple bids and multiple proposals as part of that process to ensure that pricing was appropriate. And so we are requesting this authorization with IEA be approved for commissioning in the amount of $142,000.
Thank you. We will move into any questions or comments from the board before we would entertain a motion to approve. Paula.
None at this time, Christine.
No questions, Mr. Paulus.
I just have one. Craig, you said this is a routine part of a project of this size, so it's within the original budget, master budget for the whole project. Is it assignable to? Do we break it down by building? It fits within some part of it or the management of it?
The proposal is response into all of that. It is a line item within that capitals project.
Okay.
Identified. I just don't have that amount specifically today.
All right. Thank you. I have nothing else. Allegra?
No, Mr. Tensing.
I have nothing, Ms. Brackey.
No questions here either. Naomi?
No questions.
Okay. So we could now entertain a motion to approve the authorization for the commissioning services agreement.
I will move that we authorize the commissioning services agreement with IEA.
A second.
We have a motion by Mr. Tensing and a second by Ms. Cole. Any final discussion?
Seeing and hearing no final discussion, I will take the roll. Ms. Cole?
Aye.
Mr. Paulus?
Aye.
Ms. Mishek?
I see her say hey.
Yeah,
Mr. Tensing?
Aye.
The clerk votes aye, and Ms. Brackey?
Aye. The authorization is granted. Next up, we have another item for Craig, the preliminary presentation of the district budget for next year and the traditional request that the board authorize the business office to expend up to 30% of the funds in advance. So Craig, please share more.
Yep, so thank you very much. We did have an opportunity to share this information with Fiscal Planning Advisory Committee on Monday as well, and they did approve moving forward with this, knowing that this was coming to the board tonight. It is that preliminary review of the proposed budget. This budget will be coming back to the board at the June board meeting for review and final approval. The budget must be adopted by the school board prior to June 30th for us to be able to conduct business next year. This also does request that 30% of funds be allowed to be spent by the administration prior to final budget approval. We're starting to have requisitions come in for next year so that we can get purchases on a timely manner. This really is the purpose for why that is, as we're also looking at some construction work and things like that for later in the summer that are all part of this. So that is the purpose for the request for the 30% of additional funds. We do also have in this presentation an overview of the year-to-date that we had talked about earlier in the superintendent's report, because part of, as we look at next year's budget, we also want to be taking a look and making sure we're on track for the current year. So really just kind of a highlight of that. We are looking at FY20 current year update and then the FY20 next year draft preliminary budget. Current year, we're also paying very close attention to COVID-19 implications and the revised budget fund balance projections, just kind of reminding the board where we were at with that. And then we'll move into the FY21 assumptions, fund balance projections, and what is currently in place. Really, we're seeking feedback tonight from the board on if there's any changes that you would like us to make or any things that you would like us to make sure that we're considering as part of this process that we may not have already considered as we move forward in addition to that authorization. highlight of the current year FY20 budget. This information is in the board packet. Really, it shows that we are continuing to be very much online with our revenues and our expenditures, similar to what we were at the last meeting when we were looking at March 31 end of year data. In our general fund specifically, this time we're actually taking a little bit deeper dive look at the second page of this, where we're talking about the revenue, specifically for those minor funds, specifically food service and community education. Community education appears to still be somewhat on track, with 80% of revenue received year to date. Last year was 83%, but very much in line. This month, we did see a decline in the revenue for food service that's booked into this, and that's something that we were predicting because we have, while we're working hard to serve meals across the community, delivering meals to neighborhoods, as well as having meals picked up at our schools, we are not serving as many meals as we typically would have, so that is going to be reducing the revenue on that. So this year to date, last year, we had 72% of our revenue coming into that food service fund as of April 30th. This year, it's 64.8% of our revised budget. So you can see there's that 7 or 8% variance there. Just for point of reference, last month, that variance was, we had 58.6% compared to 61.8% the year before. So about a 3% variance last time. Now that's at a 7 to 8% variance. So one of those things we anticipated when we knew we weren't serving as many meals, but obviously is going to impact that food service budget moving forward. Other than that, we're on track as of April 30th. COVID-19 implications, as we talked about. Food service fund and community education fund, we are continuing to watch the enrollment, knowing that attendance and engagement is critical for us maintaining enrollment and maintaining the funding for students. We have not made any changes to existing staffing in general fund or in any of our funds really, much of that coming from guidance from the state. And then we continue to watch our COVID-19 leaves where there's some additional leaves that were provided to employees. And there's some potential impacts on our expenditures in that area as far as requirements for staff. And just a highlight for that budget fund balance for FY20, a reminder, when we approved that revised budget, originally we were projecting 7.54% end of year unassigned fund balance. With the revisions of the increased enrollment and additional revenue coming from that, as well as some reduced expenditures, we now we're projecting at 10.26% end of year unassigned fund balance. So leaving the district in fairly stable financial terms, something that we've been working hard to grow that for both potential spend down of our referendum revenue so that we have that sustainability before we're having to go out to the voters for additional referendums and planning that way, but then also making sure that we have planned and are prepared for situations like we're dealing with right now, where the Fiscal Planning Advisory Committee specifically said, you know, we were starting to wonder maybe we were getting too high, but then this happened. And so now we understand why this is important, and that financial situation for us would be very different if we were at a 4% fund balance where we're sitting for a number of years. So moving into FY21, we are projecting a 2% increase in formula allowance that the state approved last legislative session. We are also projecting a 109 student reduction in our average daily membership to 4,056. And just a reminder that this is, ADM is different than student headcount because a preschool student is not worth a full 1.0. An early childhood special education student is not worth a full 1.0 because they are not necessarily attending full day. And so that's one of the factors that's impacting that, as well as the overall membership of the district throughout the year. And then the other thing that we continue to monitor is really that unknown impact of COVID-19, specifically as it deals with enrollment. We could see continued reduced enrollment because of that instability that people have. We could see changes in enrollment because of distance learning. We are working hard to make sure that we're maintaining contact with families. We could see increased enrollment because of our current economic situation across the country, of the affordability of private schools and things like that. One of the things we found at previous recessions is there was some return to public schools because of that financial situation. And so there's just a whole series of different things that we're watching. Also, some of the changes that came up that was identified as part of the Fiscal Planning Advisory Committee is just the disruption potentially within Minneapolis schools, and what does that mean in monitoring sort of kind of that situation. And the other thing for our budget considerations that we have built in is some more generous staffing allocations to help sustain our class sizes at a lower level. What we found when we were looking at class size ratios and allocations that way, it was tough to hit the middle. And it was either, if we reduced, we were going to go above our target ratio. If it, we have the number of kids showing up. So we are generally more generous in these staff allocations across the board. We saw about a 1 to 2 student reduction in average class sizes for each one of our schools. But it is something that we continue to monitor. Long story short is we think that if we do see some increases in class sizes, because our numbers are not reduced as much, we have a window of space in there where we would not need to necessarily increase staffing for that specifically. So with that, this kind of highlights the overall preliminary budget. The next year budget is what you're going to be taking a look at on that FY21 preliminary budget piece. We are projecting relatively consistent revenues going from $67,584,766 in our current year revised budget to $67,844,000. So that reduced enrollment as well as the 2% increase in formula really amounts to a relatively flat revenue change. In our expenditures, this is where we're seeing that increase going from $65,994,000 to $69,362,000. So a significant increase in those expenditures, much aligned with increased the inflationary costs of staffing and a variety of other factors that we're projecting at this point in time, much of which has been reviewed by the Fiscal Planning Advisory Committee over the course of the year. The other funds are continuing to be developed. When we're looking at food service and community education, this is as if we are continuing in the typical model. So not projecting that this goes on a long basis, but we are putting contingency budgets in place for June in the event that things look like we will not be able to provide the same programming in community education, or that food service is a little bit different. Obviously, if those revenues are projected to be lower, we will be able to reduce expenditures at that time as we move forward too. So we are watching those specifically. What that means for us when we look at our fund balances for FY21, where we are currently projecting a 10.26% end of year fund balance for June 30, 2020. We are projecting that that would go to 7.71% at the end of the June 30, 2021 year for that unassigned fund balance. We are looking at opportunities to offset some of that with some of the restricted accounts, specifically looking at the capital projects tech levy, which currently is projected to have a reserve build of about $600,000, which part of that is looking at some sustainability around the infrastructure specifically, as well as some of the assigned funds. Some of the dollars that are being spent in the expenditures for next year are one-time or 1 year or 2 year expenditures for some teaching and learning, curriculum development, curriculum and implementation. So looking at using some of the program initiatives so that there is not as much of a hit on that unassigned fund balance of a $1.4 million reduction in that area. Those are things that we anticipate developing a little bit further before that final adopted budget in June for the board's final approval at that point. So just seeking perspective and thoughts, and that's something that Fiscal Planning Advisory Committee had asked us to take a look at as well. Are there ways that we can use some of those other funds instead of just it all hitting the unassigned fund balance? And then the other funds, the food service, community education, those are remaining relatively stable in their current plan. A slight increase in the community education budget currently projected, but again, monitoring that carefully, knowing that so much of that budget is revenue driven based on customers buying the classes, but participating in swimming and things like that. And a lot of that revenue tends to come in over the summer. So that's one of the things that they're looking carefully at. And then you will also notice on here that construction fund, Fund 6, continues to be spent down as we get closer to finishing up those construction budgets. But that is something that we've been typically planning for that to dwindle to that point. So that's why the total all funds net reduction is $39,221,000. One of the other things that we're taking a look at and have had some conversations with some of my colleagues in other school districts is the impact of recession on our funding, specifically the per student formula allowance. And one of the things that was noted at a meeting that I was at is after a recession, schools typically received 0% funding increases from the state for 2 or 3 or 4 years. And so we need to start planning for not receiving that same amount of where we've been getting 2% increase in our formula allowance the last few years. That may not necessarily continue given the current state funding and what they're looking at for their projections. So just kind of a highlight of that, or a way to illustrate that that is something that we're paying attention to and watching for and need to just be prepared for as we're moving budgets forward as well. So kind of in conclusion, that unassigned fund balance under this current preliminary proposed budget has a projection of 7.71% unassigned, very much in target with that 4 to 8% at the higher level of that target, and actually above what we had originally had as an adopted budget for our current year, where we had projected 7.54%. So that is still above that where we were a year ago, planning for current year. Talked about the offset for the using assigned funds or the restricted funds, and then we talked about that historical funding after the recession. So with that, we'd open up for any comments, feedback, questions from the board, as well as request to have that approval of the 30% spend prior to final adoption.
Thanks, Craig. We'll do one round through of questions or comments before we would entertain the motion to approve the 30% free spend. Paula.
Thank you. So now that buildings are both closed, I'm not really sure. How are we handling registrations so that now that the CDD passed in Minneapolis, I want to know if we have seen any increased interest in the last, I don't know, few days. And if, I don't know, what do you think is going to be happening? Because I don't really know right now, like how can parents even register? I think that's my biggest question, actually. So, and the reason that's important is because we don't know that, if we're not taking registrations now and then we do later, are we going to have like a line, I guess. So I leave it up to you. I think you know what I'm thinking about.
Yep. So if you've been to any of our district websites in the last few days, you'll notice that it basically hits you in your face that it's your chance to enroll now in Richfield schools. And so we have updated that access. We do have a district survey, basically, or a survey online that allows us to gather information on those families and who the grades, ages, names of kids who they would like to be enrolling in Richfield schools. We've had that up for about a week, and we've had about 14 registrations just in that time period. And that was actually midweek last week that I had checked in. So I don't have any even new information as of today. So sorry, I don't have that. So we are working to gather information. We are also developing an online registration tool that families can register themselves, and then also setting up our outreach workers to help partner with them to be filling out forms. We're currently in translation of that online registration, which is a highly time-consuming process to go through and make sure that entire online registration form that's online is translatable, but is translated correctly. But in the meantime, we are able to gather information about students and families, and then we will be putting initial information into that registration form, and then parents will be completing their registration once that is up and running. If that gets stalled out too long, then we'll end up doing paper registrations and getting it that way. The good news is we've been pushing really hard to make sure that we're capturing the names of families and the names of kids and what grade levels, so that we aren't waiting until August to be all of a sudden finding out what this is looking like. It also gives our principals an opportunity to reach out to those families as well if they have interest.
Thank you. Christine.
I think that was very well presented. So thank you, Craig. I appreciate the forward-looking things for the next budget, and I think I don't have any further questions. Mr. Paulus.
Hi, Craig. I'm looking at the one of your last slides there. So the current year is projected to finish up so much higher than originally projected, and then next year is already set up to really just ease that down almost immediately. Is that a fair statement? But still be higher than what we thought would be this year.
Correct.
Okay. And you had said that some of those expenditures that are over budget for this projected year are 1 or 2 year. They're not an every year expenditure.
Correct.
Okay, so that's good, because right, if we're in a cycle where we're overspending by $1.5 million and it's an annual thing, we're going to run out of everything within a number of years, no matter how long we've done it. So okay, within the expenditure increases, the category facilities, is that the facilities and grounds and transportation block? That's salaries, benefits, and everything else.
Yeah, and the bulk of that increase, if you look at the fund balance slide, it really is in the long-term facilities maintenance restricted account, where that is what is increasing significantly in expenditures this year. So the long-term facilities maintenance, we had built up a reserve of $842,000. Part of that was delayed spending of that because we have these construction projects going on. And as we found clarity on what those construction projects were going to be including, it allows us to start to identify some of the other long-term facilities maintenance qualifying events. So that one specifically, you'll see it's going from, the revenue is 1.7 million. This has a budget of 2.5 million for next year. That was about 1.3 million, 1.2 million in the current budget. For that expenditure in that line item. So it really is in the long-term facilities maintenance restricted. It's not general operating expenses that would be an ongoing situation.
Okay, thank you. And just so I understand, your enrollment projection more or less ignored impact of COVID and potential recession. I mean, our range gets wider, but your best estimate is still the same, right?
the range is, I mean, the range is built on the traditional models around retention and kindergarten birth, the births of those incoming kindergarten, and looking at in a normal year, what does that look like? As we've reviewed this, it could go up, it could go down, and so that's why we continue to monitor that as fluidly as we can. And then knowing that we have some fund balance that's been acquired that allows us to be a little bit riskier than we would have been 6 years ago. At that point, the sense is, for staffing purposes and things like that, much of it is continue as close. And a variety of factors from real estate market, from housing transitions, from stability, from economic ability and things like that. A variety of things could be hitting us, and we're just going to be working really closely to monitor that as fluidly as we can, and make reductions earlier or additions earlier if we need to.
I think we'd only be guessing if we tried to discern what the impact of COVID-19 would be on enrollment when all the things are layered on. So I think it's probably the case that our best estimate is still the same, but the range of outcomes is potentially wider, for better or worse. The last thing, tying in some of the things, you'd mentioned at the end the long-term impact or the state funding reaction. You'd mentioned the impact on general formula inflationary increases or adjustments to it, but there is also the potential of a holdback. I think the last time they did it was around 2008 or 9. 1 year holdback. So we I think the last 5 of them have averaged about 8%, and so there is the potential for that, in addition to the general formula. And another thing is when we talk about, so when we have all that potential impact of lower revenue from the state, I guess when we look at staffing for the upcoming year, I think it's important that we maintain maximum flexibility as we head into this next school year, particularly when you consider that we have the potential to be told at some point in the summer that we are not hosting a traditional school year in the way that we have in the past, right? We may not need, you know, until it is certain what we are doing, and there might be roles that we leave unfilled, in a sense, to make sure that we can staff them in the most cost-effective way for the model of education we're going to roll out, at least for the first month, 2 months, 3 months, however long it might be. We might be impacted. It could well be that we find out that we're doing exactly what we did last August. But I don't know. I would just, I don't get to decide this. But my sense is that we should leave ourselves, given the financial picture looking forward and the projection of enrollment that we have, and that, you know, while I'm super happy that we've built up our fund balance, it is still finite. And so I think we would have to, we would do well to be careful with hiring a number of positions that we, in normal years, we would be thrilled to fill as soon as possible. When you consider the vulnerability we have to funding and the vulnerability we have to a different model, to make sure that the person we're hiring is accretive to the model that we're going to start the year with. But that's just my comments. I just wanted to get that out there. After that, I don't have any more questions or comments. Thanks. Allegra?
Thank you for the explanation. It really helped to get context, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness behind planning a budget with so many unknowns. And I also appreciate what you brought into the space, Tim. Thank you. Mr. Tensing, to you.
So thank you. Thank you, Craig. I do want to reflect that what Craig has presented, I think, captures pretty well the conversation at fiscal planning. I did have an opportunity to participate with that group, and I really appreciated the dialogue that we had at that group around both the enrollment assumptions and the sort of the spread of dollars across some of those assigned fund balances, and looking at ways that we can potentially be creative with using some of those funds that we've essentially set aside for a rainy day, and now is the time that we can be, as Tim says, sort of judiciously tapping them, but also knowing that we actually have a bit of a grace period with fiscal year 21 because it's not a budgeting year at the state. And as of right now, we're not anticipating that the state is going to be doing anything supplementary in terms of the fiscal year 21 budget. So a bit of a grace period there. And I'm just really glad that we're looking forward to thinking about being prepared for fiscal year 22, and the very real likelihood that we could be in a different revenue situation then. So again, in terms of just reflecting where we're at with the enrollment projection, I very much appreciate, as Tim mentioned, that the range of uncertainty is quite broad. And the number of variables that might come into play affecting our enrollment are, there's a significant number of variables with some unknowns there. And also appreciate that the strategy that it really sounds like we're taking with the strategy here is knowing that our ability this coming fall, our ability to respond to uncertainty is much greater in terms of our ability to hire than it would be our ability to reduce fixed expenses. And so that's where I think even though I personally believe there's a real chance of us seeing an uptick in enrollment, I think it makes sense for us to project the way that you have, Craig. So I just wanted to sort of reiterate that and acknowledge that it really sounds like you're building in that flexibility for us to do hiring and trying to monitor enrollment as it comes in over the summer so that we can respond earlier in the summer if possible, if it looks like we need to do some hiring. So yeah, I guess that's what I've got. It's all a way of affirming that I think despite the uncertainties, I'm feeling comfortable with this fiscal year 21 budget. So thank you.
Thank you.
Crystal.
And I will, if I may just add one piece to that when you talk about staffing, is this budget does have, traditionally we build in 3.0 FTE teacher contingency in the event that we need to add staffing at that point, but then we also don't spend that. So this does have that budgeted in as a potential expenditure, knowing that that gives us some of that flexibility, either to be reducing some of those positions as we get closer to the year that are already built into the budget.
So the thing that I've been thinking about that has not been mentioned up to this point is a conversation from a number of months ago, feels like longer ago, around our meal balance. And that, you know, at the time of our indefensible and very public issue around trying to collect on negative meal balances, we were several tens of $1,000s in a deficit in that situation. I understand we are approaching that number again, and that's even after having just an unprecedented number of donations come in. And so I'm sort of sitting in this place of what do we do when it appears as though the pattern is year after year, we're going to potentially be carrying a 5-digit, maybe even 6-digit as the years continue to compound deficit there. And I guess maybe my first question is, what happens at the end of the fiscal year to those deficits? Because I do think that, I know I brought it up several months ago, this question of, do we just need to start confronting this and thinking about it from a budgeting perspective in light of the realities that we're facing?
So let me make sure my mic is on. Yes. So a couple things. So the one that is specific where we end up having to write off parts of those is if people have left the district or seniors who are graduating. So if we haven't received the funds by the time seniors graduate, then that is one of the factors. We are looking at those individuals who are saying that their situation is such that they can't afford and to pay back those funds or pay off that debt or whatever. So those individuals are being recommended to apply for the educational benefits as part of that free and reduced program, and or they're working through and identifying kind of that being forgiven using some of those Sunshine Fund accounts specifically for those purposes. Obviously, not a lot of that has either increased in expenses because students aren't being charged for meals since the middle of March, but then also our opportunity to work with families in that situation. We really haven't been looking at kind of accelerating that or engaging in that, knowing that a lot of families are really in a tough situation right now. So annually, those debts carry forward with the students who continue in the program, or we take a look at those that need to have those debts forgiven at that point, is what's happened in the past. So not to say that that's exactly what's going to be happening moving forward, but we do need to take a look at the combination of revenues that are being generated through the donations, as well as what does that mean for that end of year fund balance and those expenses that are hitting the Fund 2 program.
And when those debts are paid off by the district, if you will,
yep.
Where are those funds coming from?
So those funds are not able to come out of the Fund 2 food service fund, so they have to come out of our Fund 1 general fund. So we now have a revenue account that's been set up for that Sunshine Fund specifically with some projected revenue. And if not, it's coming from where we buy teachers or where we pay for paraprofessionals or any of the other services that we're providing students. Ultimately is all that same fund that has to go to pay for that meal debt for people who aren't paying or aren't able to be paying for that meal service.
So I think maybe what would be helpful, and you can follow just with me directly on this, is what is the estimate for this year for what the district would be essentially paying because of graduating seniors or because of people leaving the district? I think what I'm trying to understand is what is that amount on an annual basis that we're looking at? And I guess I would welcome thoughts from others on this question of how to responsibly plan for that, while being mindful of we are still hoping that people who have the financial ability to do so are going to be paying those funds themselves. So recognizing this is a deeply challenging situation for us, and I think we want to do right by our families and our students, and also do right by our financial responsibilities to the district and our community.
So what I can do is I can tell you, since we relieved all the meal debt at the end of November to today, the seniors, it's about, I think it's just under $800 of debt that was accrued for that group at that time, as of the middle of March. Obviously, there's been no increase in meal costs since the middle of March, so we're able to provide that food through other revenue sources, but that's that piece specifically. We can take a look at the attrition in other groups and individuals and what that would mean on a typical year.
Yeah, I think that's what's hard, is this is an atypical year on multiple levels.
Yep.
And so I'm more thinking, what is the overall pattern that we're seeing, and does that lead to anything for us in terms of budget implications? So that's all I have on that.
Thank you.
Naomi.
I don't have any questions, but since it's my last meeting, I would just like to say I really appreciate how thorough and detailed his work always is, because I know that's a lot of commitment.
Thank you. Thanks, Naomi.
That's very kind of you to say, Naomi. I know it's much appreciated.
And I'm thankful for your patience listening through all of this too. So
yeah, he's a rock star. Okay, I don't see any last questions or comments from the board. So we could now turn to the request to authorize the business office to spend up to 30% of funds prior to the beginning of the fiscal year.
Madam Chair, I will move that we authorize the business office to move forward with the preliminary budget and expend up to 30% of funds for this fiscal year 21.
Thank you.
I will second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Tensing and a second by Ms. Malik. Any final discussion?
I just want to add one thing because I missed it on my turn. I just wanted to fully recognize the fact that we had a fund balance that we were able to utilize. I know it was said, but as I remember, that came in with a 2% fund balance. And the fact that it has progressed to the point where we have been able to weather a pretty serious situation and utilize that fund balance to help us get through is pretty amazing. So I just wanted to just take a second to everyone think about that and recognize how awesome that was. It worked. It was good. Okay. So if no one else has anything, I'll go ahead and take the roll. Ms. Cole.
Aye.
Mr. Paulus.
Aye.
Ms. Mishek.
Aye.
Mr. Tensing. Oh, there he is.
Aye, I got it.
The clerk votes aye, and Ms. Brockie.
Aye. The authorization is granted. Next up, we have a resolution to authorize our annual membership in the Minnesota State High School League.
Yes, so on a yearly basis, this comes before our board, and we just have to repeat and reiterate that we will be members of the Minnesota State High School League. This action has to be taken prior to August 30th of each progressive year. This also reiterates that Mr. Paulus will be the board rep to the Minnesota State High School League, lucky Tim, which puts him on a board as a voting member. And then also that our activities director will be the representative to the board, which seems like a good time to recognize and acknowledge the great work of Dave Boy, our athletic director, and our activities director, who has made a tough but exciting decision for himself to go back and teach in the classroom. Dave was an exceptional science and physics teacher at high school before he transitioned to being a dean and then an athletic director. Decided that he missed the kids, missed the learning of the classroom, and stepped forward to ask to be replaced in the classroom. And through some work with Principal Daniels and the high school leadership team, he will be rejoining the high school team in our high school physics classroom in the fall. And so we are looking for a new activities director who will be a representative to the Minnesota State High School League. Thank you to Mr. Boy for his great his great service to Richfield Schools as an activities director, and we look forward to him continuing his service back in the classroom. With that, Minnesota State High School League, Crystal Brackey.
Okay, we'll do a quick round of any questions or comments before we act on the request to approve. Paula.
Not at this time.
I have either, Mr. Paulus.
I have no questions. Just want to remind everyone that while we vote on this, we really don't have an option. If we choose not to pass this, our teams will have nowhere to play and no opponents to play and things like that. So, we kind of have to do this for a lot of reasons. That's all.
Next, as always.
No questions.
Same here.
None for me either. Naomi?
No questions.
Okay, so we could entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
I will move the resolution.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Paulus and a second by Ms. Malik. Any final discussion?
Seeing that this is a resolution, I will poll the board. Ms. Cole.
Aye.
Mr. Paulus.
Aye.
Ms. Smishek.
Aye.
Mr. Tensing.
Aye.
The clerk votes aye, and Ms. Brackey.
Aye. The resolution is granted. Now we have a request to solicit bids that Craig will explain in a little bit more depth.
So one of the items that Director Paulus pointed out, Director Paulus pointed out, sorry, was the long-term facilities maintenance budget and the facilities budget. This is one of those items that falls within that request. Dan Kretzinger, our Director of Facilities and Transportation, has been working with Andy Faulkner from ICS as well to align projects that are construction, project-based, and those that would fall under district long-term facilities maintenance. This is for pavement around the bus garage. I was over there last week and I drove through, and the amount of patchwork on that pavement that our drivers are having to go over is really deteriorating in the series. And so this is a request for the authorization to work with Larson Engineering to solicit bids for this work. It really falls into three different areas: pavement rehabilitation, and then some other improvement areas to help sustain that for a period of time at a higher level, including new concrete curbing and guttering with a new storm sewer on the field side of that bus garage, or the east side of that bus garage. And then because right now we have all of the rain running off and draining onto the pavement, that gets slippery in the spring and fall when there's freezes and rains and things like that. And so looking at some new drain collection systems as part of that project as well. So we'll be bidding for those three components of that project if approved by the board here tonight. So with that, we ask for your authorization for that soliciting of bids specifically and working with Larson Engineering for that work.
Thank you. We will have the chance for board member question and comments. Paula.
No questions. Couldn't find this spot.
No questions either, Mr. Paulus.
I have no questions, Ms. Smishek.
Questions, Mr. Tensing.
I have no questions, Ms. Brackey.
No questions here either. Naomi?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. So we could entertain a motion to approve the authorization.
So moved.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Tensing and a second by Mr. Paulus. Any final discussion?
Hearing and seeing none, I will take the roll. Ms. Cole.
Aye.
Mr. Paulus.
Aye.
Ms. Smishek.
Aye.
Mr. Tensing.
Aye.
The clerk votes aye, and Ms. Brackey.
Aye. The authorization is granted. Okay, next, we're still doing this. We've got a first read of existing Board Policy 610 on the selection and reevaluation of instructional resources. So Steve, I will turn it over to you to just provide a little bit of context around this first read.
All right, so separate from our curriculum review cycle, this is the actual selection of materials and the process that has gone through for that, including a review by our instructional team, teachers, DCAC, and then the guidelines for instructional resources, how we use them, also how we get rid of them when they are obsolete. And so as we do with all of our board policies, this is just here for a refresher review. We'll come back to the next board meeting with updates based on the MSBA model policy and try to work our way through in a typical 3-read fashion, since we don't anticipate a strange interruption in the midst of this review cycle. With that, I will turn it back to Crystal and remind members they can email between board meetings as we continue to take feedback and updates.
Thank you. Paula, anything that you would like to share as part of this first read?
Not right now. Thank you, Christine.
My one question was about online and like ebooks and things like that as instructional materials, and if we're bringing our IT director and staff into that and the technology advisory committee.
So yes, this goes to DCAC, District Curriculum Advisory, but this also goes to DTAC, the District Technological Advisory, Technology Advisory Committee, without a doubt. Thank you.
That's it. Thanks, Mr. Paulus.
You're on mute.
You're mute, Mr. Paulus.
Thank you for your patience. I don't think, I've ever seen the specifics about, a request of the books and materials. And I know that when we do the curriculum review, which was earlier in the meeting, it comes up in I assume that the curriculum is selected with an idea of materials, and they've done a review of what sort of the universe of materials that will support the curriculum is. And so I definitely would expect that's the case, and I'd support that. Some of the other things, like with just wording, there are places where we specify an individual or a role who's responsible or the person responsible. And I think for policy, we should be as vague actually as possible, so we don't have to update. The title of assistant superintendent, we could have 3 assistant superintendents if we retitle certain things, or we could have, so if there's a way we could reword that, the superintendent's designee for teaching and learning or something like that. You don't have to do it that way. That's fine. But that's an idea for just to make things more, to perpetuate them so that we don't have to update them because we've changed titles.
I am watching Dr. Roby take notes on your comments, and so that will be accommodated and she'll work her way through as we go to the next rewrite.
Yeah, and the other thing I noticed was in the gift resources. When the district asserts a sense of ownership of the materials that are acquired through requests through various things like donor's choice or whatever, is there any way to involve the district in writing the request so that we know that it's written in a way that reflects as positively on the district as possible? Well-meaning people could write things perhaps under duress. They feel they need materials, or someone writes it for them, and it doesn't necessarily convey what I would say is an accurate portrayal of the district's funding, the district's support for the materials, or the need for the materials. And so I just want to make sure I don't want to limit the requests. What I want to do is make sure they're written in a way that projects as favorably as it could.
Yes, we actually have a grant request process that goes through teaching and learning, or that goes through our cabinet team after going through directors. We try to influence that as much as we can, but obviously, as we know, there are times where people just decide to go out to the community using methodologies like Facebook or other direct requests. But yes, as we have picked up policy review and training this year, this is one of the policies we anticipate training in the fall, just as a reminder as we continue to update.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Ms. Smishak?
I don't have any questions, but I wanted to say thanks to Dr. Roby for the materials you sent to give me greater context of the process in Richfield.
So I just had, I mean, and this is similar to some of the observations that Tim made. I mean, and this is coming from the, I think it's the second section, where we do lay out some guidance for various positions. You know, that, you know, library and media specialists are asked to seem as if they're held to a different standard than teachers when it comes to selection of materials. And I feel that that section is an important one because it seems that that's where there's a lot of the judgment section, you know, where we're asking folks to essentially use their professional judgment and to reference these guidelines as opposed to one's own personal opinion. So I guess that I'll be curious to see how that first rewrite comes about, primarily because I feel that we could have some more clarity. I really do think we could have some more clarity there, and I guess ask the question of why is there a different standard apparently for a library and media specialist as opposed to a classroom teacher? I'm not sure I understand why we need a different standard for those two roles.
The biggest thing to respond in terms of that is that library media specialists are responsible for ordering, cataloging books, and so they are people that are directly licensed to be in the material selection business, whereas teachers are participating in collaboration with teaching and learning, who works together and oversees the selection of curriculum. Media specialists have specified training as part of their licensure programming for material selection. And so that is some of the background about the different standards.
Okay, so thank you for that. And again, I think since this is the first read, I'll step back and allow the wordsmithing to occur before we start trying to get into little details. Thank you, Chair Bracke.
Thank you. That's kind of a similar place to where I am as well, where the more that I read and got into this policy, I think the more questions built in my mind and thinking about what the policy is stating and asking of staff, of administration, and so on. And so I think this is one that is potentially a little bit more complex than I thought when I first started reading it. So look forward to the ongoing discussion as well. Naomi, anything you would like to share?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. So we will move on to our final new business item, which is donations made to the district in recent weeks.
All right, so I am recommending the board accept the following donations with gratitude. The ECMC Foundation Go program donated $5,000 to Sheridan Hills for participating in their program. These funds will be used to support specialist programs that will be moving into new spaces in 2020, 2021. Thank you to the ECMC Foundation Go program. Sunshine Fund received a donation of $100 through Give Minnesota from Jadana James of Minneapolis, so thank you, Jadana James. And then RPS General Fund received a donation of $736 through Give Minnesota from Catherine Kelly of Richfield, so thank you to Catherine Kelly.
Okay, as this is a routine business item, we won't go through each board member individually, but rather I'll just pause to see if there are any questions or comments. Seeing and hearing none, is there a motion to approve the donations with gratitude?
So moved.
I will second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Cole and a second by Mr. Paulus. Any final discussion?
Hearing and seeing none, I will take the roll. Ms. Cole?
Aye.
Mr. Paulus?
Aye.
Ms. Smishek?
Aye.
Mr. Tensing?
Aye.
The clerk votes aye, and Ms. Bracke?
Aye. The donations are accepted with gratitude. And we move into the advanced planning section of the agenda, beginning with a legislative update on this, the last official day of the legislative session. Peter, is there anything you would like to share to start?
Remarkably, I do not have anything specific to share. Steve, I'll see if you want to pitch in.
I will just knock out a few things. And so some of the bills in the House File 4415 Supplemental E12 Budget Bill did a couple things that are supporting what has been happening over the last set of months. The flexibilities in regard to funding were cemented into law, including one of the specific things from our platform. No longer requiring us to set aside a portion of the compensatory revenue for extended time purposes. So allowing us to use those funds in a way during the school year that allows those flexibilities that we have asked for. Many of the things just allowed flexibilities due to COVID, created assurances long-term related to COVID, and supported some of the things talked about in the governor's executive order around special ed funding flexibility, early childhood funding flexibility, and then talking about allowing people to carry funds forward in situations because of unexpected funding situations. With that, that's just a brief summary of all the things contained, and I'm sure a lot of those details will continue to come out. But we're pleased with the overall bill, and specific again, something we've had success with lately, one of our particular platform items getting passed. And so a thank you out to our legislators and a thank you to this team.
Thank you. Next is time for any information and or questions members of the board would like to share with each other. So we will start with Paula, who will then pass it on from there.
I have nothing to share. No. Christine, do you have something to share?
I have no information or questions to share, so I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Paulus.
I also have no information to share and no questions. Ms. Mishek.
I almost wish I did, but I don't. Mr. Thompson.
I'm in the same boat as all of you, so we'll pass it back to the chair.
Thank you. I will share something, which I promise to be brief. I just wanted to share with folks the tentative plan for the annual superintendent evaluation process. So the main thing is that the form that is part of the superintendent evaluation policy will be going out to board members later this week. And board members will complete individually and have until early June to do so. At the same time, I am going to send out a form to all of Steve's direct reports to also share feedback to be part of this process. Tentatively, I'm planning that we will hold the closed session of the board to have the final evaluation discussion during our July 13th meeting, which means it would be mid to late June that Steve, Tim, and I would sort of have the informal initial version of that conversation as a triad before we come to the full board, as I said in that July 13th meeting. And then the public summary of that evaluation would happen during the next meeting after that closed session. So tentatively the first meeting in August. So obviously a lot of time still to go. You will have ample time to complete those individual evaluations, but I just wanted you to know that that is going to be the process and tentative timeline this year. And that is the only update that I had to share. Naomi, is there anything that you would like to share?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Our next meeting will be on Monday, June 15th at 7:00 p.m. We also still tentatively have a hold on the calendar for a second meeting in June, should we need it, on Monday, the 29th at 7 p.m. So please just continue to set that time aside. And we hope to confirm shortly whether or not we will be utilizing that meeting time, especially keeping in mind the deadline that Craig shared earlier of needing a finalized budget in place by June 30th. Before I do one last call for Steve for any updates that he would like to share, are there any items that board members would like to request for discussion on an upcoming agenda? Okay, seeing none. Steve, is there anything that you would like to share before we officially close out the meeting?
Just a hearty thank you to all of our board members and our student board members, specifically Naomi for her ongoing dedication in the 2 hour and 53 minutes we've been here online. So well done, Naomi, and well done, team members.
Yes, and happy last board meeting of the academic year. Our final item of business is to adjourn, and not requiring a full board vote. I will officially adjourn the meeting as chair at 9:52 p.m. Have a good evening, everyone, and we will see you again on June 15th. Good night.